the Republic will be reorganized into the first galactic empire for a safe and secure society.
The Great Reset is not a conspiracy theory. It is something that the Davos people have put together along with the World Economic Forum.
It was former Chicago mayor and chief of staff to President Obama, Rahm Emanuel, who once said you never want a serious crisis to go to waste. Emanuel said a few weeks ago he still believes that.
Never want a serious crisis to go to waste. And what I mean by that, it's an opportunity to do things that you think you could not do before.
Maybe this isn't such a crazy conspiracy theory after all. And after seeing everything we've seen with the governments enacting all sorts of authoritarian controls and many other conspiracy theories coming true, maybe there's something to be concerned about.
Everything is proceeding as I have foreseen.
So what is the Great Reset? The name even sounds conspiratorial, but believe it or not, it's a real thing. The Great Reset started off as the name of a meeting held by the World Economic Forum in the summer of 2020. The World Economic Forum began in the 70s. It's basically a club made up of world leaders, corporations, and other wealthy elites. Every year, they get together in Davos, Switzerland, and pontificate about how to best manage the world and solve problems. This year, the meeting starts today. However, due to the pandemic, like last year, the winter in-person Davos meeting has been postponed to summer, and instead they'll be hosting the meetings this week online. And the conference kicks off today with a special opening speech by China's Xi Jinping. But basically, think of it as a bunch of hoity-toities getting together in a bougie ski resort town to make connections, rub elbows, collaborate. Sometimes world leaders make some peace and prevent war, which is a good thing. Sometimes people will fundraise money for causes, which is also a good thing. But mostly it's a way for elites and world leaders to get together and scheme up new ways to march us towards a more globalized world.
And we should not be intimidated when people say, oh, you can't use this COVID crisis, to peddle a solution to climate change. No, we have to recognize the necessity of this moment.
The dark side of the Force is a pathway to many abilities some consider to be unnatural.
Ideas like NAFTA were born in Davos at their annual meeting. Now, the Great Reset is the name of one of those meetings, and it's since turned into an entire agenda with its own microsite attached to the main World Economic Forum website. And the founder of the World Economic Forum has even written a book titled The Great Reset. So it's very real. Now, the idea is the COVID pandemic has been so disruptive, it's exposed social, political, and economic weaknesses in the Western world. They claim COVID exposed breakdowns in a variety of sectors, from healthcare to education to finance to energy. They claim Western capitalism is the root cause of these issues, and a serious overhaul, a reset of the system is needed.
I have waited a long time for this moment.
And I truly think that if we do this right, we have an incredible opportunity to not just dig out of this crisis, but to fundamentally transform the country.
Never mind the fact that most of the disruption was actually caused by governments shutting down businesses, societies, and schools, and now going a step further and telling people they must be vaccinated numerous times over in order to participate in the economy and society.
We are in complete control of the planet now.
Good.
Mutual interest, everything from COVID-19 and our efforts to address the global pandemic,
Governments, no matter what their intentions have been, whether you think it's good or bad, they are the reason for the disruptions. But the Great Reset says either way, it's an opportunity to rebuild society in a way the global elites see best fit.
Democratic Socialist Senator Bernie Sanders also believes the pandemic has a, quote, silver lining, and he thinks now is the time to rethink the way society works. Watch.
And we should ask ourselves, among other things, is healthcare a human right that all of us deserve?
And one thing that really stands out is that they're very vague about what this reset means or even looks like. They just insist it will be good for us. And because the reset blatantly blames Western capitalism, we see a lot of right-wing outlets such as Fox News and Breitbart going after the Great Reset, claiming it's ushering in socialism or communism. But as Glenn Beck mentioned later on in his interview with Tucker, he says he was wrong, that it wasn't about socialism or communism, that it's more about enacting a form of government similar to China's. And what does that mean exactly if it doesn't mean communism? Well, it means that you would own nothing. Everything would be owned by, most likely, one of the many World Economic Forum partner corporations, and you would have no privacy.
And I also think, George, to tell you the truth, that if there is any silver lining in the midst of this terrible, terrible, and unprecedented moment in American history in terms of the economy, in terms of the pandemic, it is that maybe we start rethinking some fundamental tenets about the way our government and society work.
Take a look at this video published in 2016 on the World Economic Forum's Facebook page. That you'll own nothing and you will be happy. That's what they're saying.
For a safe and secure society.
One, I was, as many people know, I was a very strong supporter of Senator Sanders. And Senator Sanders believes very much that this is something that, in a direction that he wants to take the campaign, and wants to make sure that we position progressive leaders as in very key positions to, at the very least, sway and push the Biden administration as much as possible to improve and better articulate progressive policy.
With inflation sky high and no signs of it slowing down, they might be right. We are on our way to becoming a nation of renters. But don't worry, it's nothing to fear, just the opposite, says Bloomberg, if you remember this story. Bloomberg, by the way, is one of the hundreds of partners with the World Economic Forum, and they list all of their partners on their website. Other partners include NBC, Google, New York Times, Pfizer, Moderna, AstraZeneca, Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, Apple, Amazon, Goldman Sachs, and many, many others. On top of the idea we're just going to have to move towards the sharing economy, the elites have discussed eradicating paper money, making all transactions traceable. We've talked about the proposed plan for the IRS to audit all bank accounts with accumulation of $600 in annual deposits. Well, they've used the fear of global and domestic terrorism to justify and even make popular things like surveillance and censorship. They're limiting our ability to work, get an education, travel, and even enjoy life on the premise of bringing us safety.
Once more, the Sith will rule the galaxy.
They're turning us against one another, vaccinated versus unvaccinated, right versus left, getting us to ban and cancel one another, ushering in a sort of organic social credit system. And my guess is many people would welcome a big tech or government-controlled social credit scoring system in the same vein as what has been rolled out in China. This would ensure they are only sharing restaurants and movie theaters with other do-gooders like themselves. But don't worry, everything is being done under the premise that this is all good for our own. This is all being done for our own good, the benefit of a collective society, and we will be happy.
But this crisis is showing us what is essential. And I think it's time we reward people who actually make this country work. I do believe from this moment, from this crisis, we have an opportunity not just to rebuild the economy, but to transform it. We have a chance to institutionally change the way this economy functions once we get by this god-awful pandemic.
You're fulfilling your destiny, Anakin.
So what's really interesting about this Great Reset is the book that Klaus Schwab wrote. He's the founder of the World Economic Forum. You know, he really goes into, if you read the book, it's pretty dystopian. And there's some really good ideas. You know, people read it and they say, well, I agree with this. You know, I agree that we need an overhaul to our healthcare system. I agree that we need an overhaul. You know, we need to really focus on global warming. But the solution that him and these other elites have come up with is a very globalized economy, a globalized world, and one that lacks privacy, that lacks ownership, one that lacks many of the things that many of us find, you know, many of us hold dear. They're saying, no, we got to get rid of that if we want to reset.
We can't let this new crisis make things worse. We have to take advantage of it. We have to take advantage of it. We have to take advantage of it.
Do what must be done, Lord Vader. Do not hesitate, show no mercy.
Every form of health care should continue to be available, including reproductive health care for every woman in this country. And then it needs to be part of a much larger system that eventually and quickly, I hope, gets us to universal health care. So I can only say amen to everything you're saying, but also to, again, enlist people that this would be a terrible crisis to waste, as the old saying goes.
Execute Order 66.
We've learned a lot about what our absolute frailties are in our country when it comes to health justice and economic justice. So, let's be resolved that we're going to solve those once you're elected president.
I am the Senate.
This would be a terrible crisis to waste, as the old saying goes.
The old saying with a new following.
And what's even more, I think, misleading about the Great Reset and the solution is they say, they blame it on capitalism. They say, well, it's Western capitalism that's the problem. But their solution is sort of more capitalism. I mean, they call it stakeholder capitalism, but it's just basically corporations will own everything. And they're saying there's got to be a merging between private and public sectors, and that the corporations will own everything and run most things. And then we're just going to have to, be beholden to them, to the banks and these corporations. And so it's really vague what this reset is, but this is why it's so alarming.
Everything that has transpired has done so according to my design.